Okay, picture this. You're a slave in ancient Rome. Year 61 AD. Your master is Pedanius Secundus, the powerful prefect of the city, a governor of Rome. One night, driven by rage and desperation, you do the unthinkable. You sneak into his chambers and, in cold blood, you murder him in his own bed. Why did you do it? Maybe, through years of pain and helplessness, you had finally reached a breaking point. Maybe he'd promised you freedom after you'd saved enough money to buy yourself back, then changed his mind. The reasons don't matter anymore. What matters now is what happens next. And what happens next will show you exactly how much your life is worth in the eyes of Rome. Here is your price. 400 innocent slaves die for your crime. No, they didn't help you. No, they didn't know your plans. And no, most of them don't even know who you are. They die because Roman law demands it. Every single slave in that household, from the old woman who raised the master's children to little boy who just arrived yesterday, they are all crucified. That's the price of one slave's rebellion. 400 lives for one dead master. Worse yet, had there been more slaves, the cost would have been higher. This isn't just ancient history. This is but a piece of the foundation of how humanity learned to exploit labor, to turn human beings into tools, into property, into something less than human. And here's the terrifying part. Every era in human history has invented its own unique way to squeeze the life out of workers. The methods may change, yes, but the exploitation remains. In ancient Rome, slavery wasn't some secret that was hidden away. It was everywhere. Walk through any Roman street and you'd see them. The man carrying water, that's a slave. The woman grinding grain, another slave. The teacher instructing children in the forum. Yep, she's a slave too. Some historians estimate that at the height of the Roman Empire, 1 in every 3 people in Italy was enslaved. Think about that. Look around you are right now. Imagine every third person you see wearing chains. Roman slavery created these twisted, intimate relationships. Your master had absolute power over you. He could beat you, torture you, kill you on a whim, and there were no laws to protect you. Yet, at the same time, you might live in his house, raise his children, manage his business affairs. You may be closer to him than his own family. When that slave killed Pedanius Secundus, the Roman Senate debated what to do. The law was clear. Every slave in the household must die. But Pedanius owned 400 slaves. Get this. Many of the Roman people actually rioted in the streets trying to save these innocent slaves. Then Senator Gaius Cassius stood up and delivered a chilling speech. He said, "If we don't kill them all, no master will ever be safe again. Fear is the only thing that keeps slaves in line. Show mercy now, and tomorrow, every slave in Rome might pick up a knife." The Senate quickly agreed, unanimously. All 400 died. The historian Tacitus doesn't even bother recording the murderer's name. He was a slave. What mattered was the message sent to every other slave in the empire. The message was clear. This is what happens when you resist. Jump forward 1,500 years and cross the Atlantic Ocean. Now, you're in the American South well before the Civil War. Here, slavery has evolved into something even more insidious, wrapped up in ideas about race and skin color that would have puzzled the Romans. Let me tell you about Harriet Jacobs. She wrote her autobiography under a fake name because even after she escaped, she knew the truth about her life as a slave could get her killed, or worse. At age 12, Harriet was sent to live with her 5-year-old niece. The niece's father, Dr. Flint, decides he wants Harriet all for himself. By the time she's 15, he's 50. He follows her everywhere, making her his concubine. The doctor's wife knows, but instead of protecting Harriet, she hates her for it. You can see how sexual exploitation of female slaves was an open secret that poisoned not just the individual, but entire households. Harriet fights back the only way she can. She takes a white lover of her own choosing, hoping for protection. She has 2 children with this man, but their mother is a slave, so they're slaves too. They all belong to Dr. Flint. Finally, when she's 21, Harriet decides to run. But she doesn't make a dramatic dash for the north. She hides in her grandmother's attic for 7 years. 7 years in a cramped space, 9 feet long, 7 feet wide, 3 feet high at its tallest point. She can't stand up. She can barely move. For 7 years. Through a tiny hole she bored in the wall, she watches her children grow up. They don't know she's there, just a few feet above their heads. She watches Dr. Flint threaten her grandmother. She watches her son get beaten. She can do nothing. Why doesn't she leave? because Dr. Flint has threatened to sell her children to the Deep South, to the cotton plantations where enslaved people rarely survive more than a few years. As long as he thinks she's fled north, he leaves the children alone. Finally, after those 7 long years, friends arrange an escape to Philadelphia, but even in the free north, she's not safe. The Fugitive Slave Act means Dr. Flint can legally hunt her down at any time if he so chooses. She lives in constant terror. The final insult comes when she gains her freedom. A white employer buys her from Flint's daughter and sets her free. Even her freedom is a financial transaction. She writes, "The more my mind had become enlightened, the more difficult it was for me to consider myself an article of property." Now comes the modern age. Marx looked at the factories of Manchester workers doing 16-hour days in conditions that killed them just as surely as any Roman mine. But these workers were free. They could quit any time. Of course, they could also starve. That was their freedom. The Romans called it slavery. Medieval lords called it serfdom, owning the land and therefore your labor. Now, we all call it capitalism. And just like in ancient Rome, we walk along the streets and through the markets and look at each other as our own variety of slaves. Think about the progression. Roman slaves lived in your house. Medieval serfs had cottages nearby, but the Industrial Revolution changed everything. Today, you might not even know who owns the company you work for. We've gone from slavery, where the master knew every slave by name, to a system where you don't even know who your master is. Here's what connects all these systems. Whether it's a Roman slave in the mines, a medieval serf in the fields, or a gig worker today juggling 3 jobs without health insurance. Those who do the work have had to fight for every scrap of dignity, every moment of rest, every safety protection. Nothing was ever given freely. The Roman slave revolt led by Spartacus was crushed, and 6,000 rebels were crucified along the Appian Way. Medieval peasants who rebelled were slaughtered. The first union organizers were shot by Pinkerton guards. Every right workers have today was purchased with blood. You want to know the real horror of slavery? It's not just the whips and chains, it's how normal it seemed to everyone involved. Roman senators, brilliant philosophers who gave us the foundations of Western law, they owned slaves and never questioned it. Thomas Jefferson wrote that all men are created equal while owning over 600 human beings. Every generation thinks its way of organizing work is natural and inevitable. The Romans couldn't imagine their civilization without slaves. Factory owners in the 1800s couldn't imagine production without child labor. And today, what will future historians say about gig workers without benefits? About people working 3 jobs and still unable to afford rent? About people unable to put food on the table for their children? The tragedy of that Roman slave who killed Pedanius isn't just that he died for his defiance, it's that 400 innocent people died with him, and Roman society didn't even notice. The systems change, but the struggle remains the same. Those who do the work fighting for dignity against those who get fat and rich from their labor. Because if history teaches us anything, it's this: power never gives up anything voluntarily. Not in ancient Rome, not in the antebellum South, not in Victorian factories, and not today. The methods of exploitation evolve, become more sophisticated, more abstract, harder to see. But they're still there, grinding people down, turning human beings into resources to be optimized, exploited, and discarded. The slave's chains have been replaced by the employment contract. The overseer's whip has been replaced by the threat of unemployment. The auction block has been replaced by the job market. But the fundamental relationship remains: those who own and those who work, those who profit and those who produce. And the saddest part? We're still having the same arguments. When Roman slaves rebelled, senators argued that showing mercy would collapse the economy. When abolitionists fought to end slavery, plantation owners said it would destroy civilization. When workers demanded 8-hour days, factory owners insisted it would bankrupt industry. Every single time workers have demanded to be treated as human beings, those in power have predicted catastrophe. And every single time, they've been wrong. So next time you hear someone say that raising the minimum wage will destroy jobs, or that workplace safety regulations hurt business, or that unions are obsolete, just remember, you're hearing the same argument Roman senators made when they crucified 6,000 slaves, the same argument plantation owners made when they fought a civil war to keep human beings in chains. The names change, the justifications evolve, but the struggle remains the same. And history shows us clearly which side wins in the end. It's never pretty. It's never easy. It takes generations of sacrifice. But gradually, painfully, humanity inches toward justice. The arc of history is long, but it bends toward freedom. even if those in power have to be dragged kicking and screaming every inch of the way. So, if you found this deep dive into the dark history of human exploitation enlightening, disturbing, or both, hit that subscribe button. Like this video if it made you think differently about work and power. And remember, every right you have as a worker, someone fought for it, someone bled for it, someone died for it. Don't let anyone convince you to give it up without a fight.